This video tutorial will look at cash flow forecasting. Cash flow for a business is the movement of money into and out of a business over a period of time. Much in the same way, a good analogy could be water, moving in and out of a bath. We like having water in our bath, gives us something to soak in and something to wash with, and keeps us nice and warm certainly in cold weather. In the same way, business likes having that money in its business so that actually it's got things it can spend on a day-to-day basis. So in the same way as we put water into our bath to fill it up, a business will actually have inflows of cash as money received in cash form to a business. As these go in, much in the same way as a tap will fill up our bath, our cash inflows fill up the business's working capital. This is the money that's available within the business to spend on those bills that may receive, so paying staff, paying taxes, paying our suppliers. Now, business also has cash outflows, in the same way as an outflow in a bath, which is our bath plug. In a bath, this means the water level drops down. In a business, it means the amount of money we've got available, sat for day-to-day use, reduces. So it's something which is a necessary evil, but it's something that can cause us problems and will mean that our business may run short of cash. And we'll look at cash flow problems later on. Now, you'll hear a phrase called net cash flow. And net cash flow looks at the difference between the money coming in and the money leaving a business. So in this example, our cash inflows are quite large, our cash outflows are actually quite small. So you'll see, therefore, over time, the amount of working capital within our business, our water level if you like in this example, is going up. So the business has got more money available to pay bills. It's got a higher rate of liquidity. Now, something businesses want to avoid, certainly in the long term, in the short term it's not a major problem, but in the long term is negative cash flow. Negative cash flow is where more money is leaving a business than is actually entering it. So you can see here our cash inflows are small, our cash outflows are actually quite large. If this happens over a sustained period of time, a business can actually find itself insolvent, not able to pay its bills, and ultimately this can lead to bankruptcy. So this is definitely a situation that we need to avoid. It would be important for a business, if they think they are going to have cash flow problems, to arrange an overdraft or similar suitable source of finance. As I mentioned though, in the short term, 1 or 2 months, negative cash flow is not a major problem. Certainly if a business has got a buffer of money, or water in our bath if you like in this analogy, able to pay the bills when there's more going out than coming in. That's also a problem if we have too much cash in a business. It's much less of a problem as having no cash. However, it does suggest some inefficiency. The business is set on lots of cash, which could be used in other ways. It could be used for training of staff. It could be used for developing new machinery, new products, new processes. It could be used for marketing. It could be used for a whole range of things which actually would help to grow and develop the business. So actually it's inefficient to be sitting on large sums of cash. So businesses tend to try to avoid doing this. Now, one common misconception is that cash flow and profit are one and the same thing. They're not. They're very, very different. Cash flow, as we mentioned, is the movement of money through a business over a period of time. Profit is very simply a situation that occurs when a business makes more money from sales revenue than it actually has to spend out in terms of costs. Now the example here, very simple example, we can actually say a business which theoretically is very profitable. Its inflows from its retail income, it's a retail business, is £9,500 for this period. Its outflows, and there are many of them, only come to £9,100. So theoretically, if this was a short-term profit statement, the business will make £400 profit. So you can see the outflows £9,500 and our inflows £9,100. However, if at the start of the month we're still waiting for that retail income, if we suddenly get a demand to pay for our new computer equipment, £5,000, if the business doesn't have that kind of money in the bank, then actually they'll end up with liquidity issues and they won't be able to pay that. So this could actually mean, in extreme circumstances, a business perhaps having issues of insolvency and potentially bankruptcy, even though profitable. Key thing to remember is if you're writing a cash flow answer and you use the term profit, then it's probably an inaccuracy somewhere. They two should not come together. So how might cash flow appear in an exam? Well, there's a couple of different ways. You must remember that cash flow as a concept is actually relatively straightforward. The examiners are more interested in you interpreting it, but there will be times where they want you to do some calculation. It is very unlikely you'll be given information as is given on the left here, Big Business Limited, where they're actually asked you to construct a cash flow forecast. This would take a significant amount of time In terms of the skills you'll be demonstrating, really it's not a good use of time for the examiners in that exam. What's likely is you may be given on the right hand side of the screen a table that actually asks you to fill in some blanks. So this is a previous piece of exam material that illustrates that. Coincidentally, if you're doing exercises in class or practicing for this, you'll notice on Big Business Limited I've actually colour coded some of the information. I find this useful. Any cash outflows, we don't like cash outflow, it's a bad thing for a business ultimately. I've colour coded red. Any cash coming in, I've colour coded green. And any important information such as credit terms, which we'll come to later, and our bank balance, I've highlighted in different colours just so it jumps out to me. Again, by doing this you make sure you don't miss anything. So far I've mentioned about cash flow forecasts. Just a quick pause here. Cash flow statements are an historic document, so it's perhaps how the business managed its cash previously. You might be able to look for problems in there. And the cash flow forecast is looking forward to actually how is a business intending to spend money. Both useful documents. Cash flow forecast is very useful. You get to see when a business might have more money available, so it could be showing ideas of when actually expansion would be better prepared for in terms of having working capital to actually manage a business during that period. One note, working capital is not a good source of finance in the long term. Okay, so the structure of a cash flow document. Let's have a look at these. It'll be the same for a forecast or for a statement. So the first thing you'd have, and this is going down the page, are your cash inflows. I've summarised mine, giving an example of a business might have cash inflows of £15,000. This is, if you like, the heading. There could be any number of different inflows that come under this heading. The next thing you list is the cash outflows. Again, I put mine in red. Hopefully they're going to be less than the inflows. If they're not, you'll end up with negative cash flow. So in this example, our cash outflows are £4,000. Then comes our net cash flow. Now the calculation for this is really straightforward. You take your inflows, the green number 15,000, and take away, or minus, the outflows, which is 4,000 here. So 50 minus 4 is £11,000. So that gives you your net cash flow. So that tells you, if you like, how much your working capital is increasing or decreasing. For our bathwater, it's the level it's going up or down. Now the opening bank balance is really important, and you can't calculate it. It is always given in some form in the question. It may be already filled into a sheet, it may be stated somewhere in the text. Now to calculate our closing bank balance is really straightforward. We add together our net cash flow, in this case it's a positive figure, £11,000, plus our opening bank balance, which is £20,000. And businesses don't like stuffing their money under mattresses or in the cupboard, so it all goes into the bank. So £11,000 plus the £20,000 now our new closing bank balance, which is £31,000. Month 2 we follow in the same pattern. The obvious thing here though is whatever money we finish month 1 with becomes our opening balance for month 2. So that £31,000 we finish month 1 is now our opening balance for month 2. Our cash inflows and outflows, etc., we then calculate, and that new net cash flow, positive or negative, will then be added to the opening bank balance. Now so far we're assuming everything's done for cash. In reality, that's not the case. While it'd be good to do everything by cash, we know exactly how much money we have. In reality, we're talking about cash flow, sometimes that's delayed. For some businesses, it's actually a really good marketing advantage to tell customers they can pay later. Even business to business. Suppliers to big businesses may want to get their trade, and so they'll say, take the products now and pay us later. This is called having credit, and the credit terms a business has will make a difference to when and how they receive their money. If you're a customer who's going to supplier taking items and paying them later, you are known as a debtor to that business, and suppliers who allow a business to take goods and then pay 30, 60, perhaps 90 days later are known as creditors. So how would that affect this example? Well, let's assume I'm getting 1 month's credit. So actually, that cash inflow that I've mentioned of £15,000 is actually now going to be happening in month 2. So let's move it over there. Let's go through the rest of the table and see what changes we make. Well, our cash outflows are still the same. I still need to, assuming I haven't got credit myself, pay for the items that I'm going to be producing, my raw resources, materials, my facts of production, in advance. So I have to pay £4,000 for those, even though I've received no cash inflows. That means our net cash flow is actually going to be a £4,000 negative figure. Note, in business we use brackets to show negatives. Putting a small dash next to a figure can be very quickly missed, certainly if you're handwriting it. So we use brackets to make it really clear. So our net cash flow is now negative. Our bathwater, if you like, is going down. I've had nothing going in, but £4,000 going out. Our opening bank balance is still 20,000, but our closing balance now, 20,000 we already had, plus a -4. Remember, if you plus a negative figure, essentially you take away that negative figure. So 20,000, take away 4, leaves with a bank balance of 16. The impact that has is then changing the opening bank balance for the next month to 16,000. That's a reduction of 15,000, but this is where we've got to remember that cash will be coming in at the beginning of month 2. And so it continues. So you'll find, if you've got trade credit terms, there is an offset as you move forward. So what causes cash flow problems? Well, one of 3 things. Too little cash inflow, so you're not getting money in fast enough. Perhaps you're giving people too much trade credit. Maybe it's your cash leaving the business too quickly. So maybe your supplier is demanding payment really quickly and you're not able to keep up with that. It could just be a poor business model and actually it's not profitable, so therefore you're spending more than's coming in. It can also be a lack of working capital. Remember that level of water in the bath. If we haven't got the money available, then we can't pay our bills, and we'll very quickly find that we cease trading. So what can you do about it? Basically, we need to do anything to improve those cash inflows, reduce those cash outflows, and maintain that working capital at a sensible level. So the first thing we can do is negotiate better credit terms. So we can go to our suppliers and see to take longer to actually pay them. This means money is remaining in the business longer, the outflow is delayed, so we'll keep it as working capital. Akin to that with our credit terms, we could try to get our customers to pay a bit quicker. If we currently allow them 60 days to pay, let's make it 30. If we're allowing 30, let's see if we can make it 20. You might lose a marketing advantage, but certainly losing a marketing advantage is probably preferable than actually going out of business. You could possibly reduce payments where possible. So see if there's any way where actually you could reschedule payments. So you have a loan, maybe take it over a longer period of time, so monthly payments will be smaller. Businesses could reduce their stock level. If lots of cash is tied up in stock, then it's not available to pay bills. So by letting stock levels run lower, employing things like just in time, then actually that's going to keep that level of working capital higher, so we've got money available to pay bills. And the final possibility is to maybe sell off any larger assets in the business no longer required. Perhaps selling off old machinery, which is used to someone, perhaps obsolete to us. Perhaps selling off vehicles or other things that is going to generate some working capital in the short term that we can use to pay those bills. So that's cash flow, hopefully in a nutshell.